Cool. And I just
And
started the
I
recording.
see Dina. Yes, I see a few people I know here. I see Dina's on the call.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. All right.
All right. Well, let's see. As folks trickle in and the numbers start to go up, do we just want to do some intros and then we can jump into some of the questions?
Did we lose Nick? Did he fall off? No, he's there. Just somehow he just went into attendee status. Oh, there we go. There he is.
All right.
Falling off for a second. There we go.
Jeff, do you want to start?
Yes, I can start.
Okay.
So my name is Jeff Bloomer. I was the manager of digital analytics at Kroger up until about a month ago. So I'm currently a free agent. But I have been doing Adobe Analytics and some CJA for the last almost 12 years now. So that is my range of experience. I'm a big advocate on data standards and campaign tracking and marketing channels and all that fun stuff. So you'll find that I get very passionate when we get into any of those kinds of topics. But that is what I love, and that is what I do, and that's why I'm here. So I'll pass it on.
All right. Nick, do you want to introduce yourself?
I'd love to, but I don't know if anybody can hear me.
We can hear you.
You're just fine. Yep, you're good.
Okay, perfect. I am Nick Walter. I used to actually work with Jeff until about a month ago. I actually left Kroger as well, so now I'm at NRG, which is an energy company. I've got about 12 years of experience in Adobe, and this is my first year as an Adobe champion. So I'm really enjoying the program and enjoying doing these kinds of functions.
Awesome. And I'm Megan Powers. This is my third year as an Adobe champion, but I've been working on this stuff for like 15 or so years. And I work at CarMax. I lead a team at CarMax called Digital Data Strategy, and we're responsible for implementing all of our Adobe Analytics first-party tags, as well as all of our marketing third-party tags through Adobe Launch. We also own Adobe Target, as well as a bigger suite of tools to help understand our digital customer and associate behavior. I've been at CarMax 9.5 years. And shout out to CarMax. We were just doing a CarMax Cares event volunteering at a community kitchen, like a food kitchen. And so I got to wear my super cool Adobe Champion apron. So I thought I'd just wear it right on this call because I don't get to show it off as much as the other gear. So, all right. And with that, welcome to the April edition of Adobe Champ Office Hours. We can jump into some of the pre-submitted questions, which we have up in our workspace that we'll show. But this is a ongoing thing, so feel free to drop stuff into the chat and we'll pick it up and answer it there or answer it out loud here, and we can jump in and demo that in workspace as well. So, all right. So let's see. I can share my screen.
And you guys reminded me the one thing I forgot to say. This is my 4th year as an Adobe champion.
Okay. Okay. Can you all see this? The workspace?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. Cool. All righty. So we can start with our first submitted question, which is about EVARs. I will read it out loud, and I dropped some notes in here ahead of time, and so I'll just read through those, and then Jeff and Nick, feel free to jump in too. So what EVARs do you need to collect data related to form submission conversions? and how to ensure that the EVAR's previous page value is tracked correctly when the form page is from a different subdomain. I dropped in some of the best practices we use at CarMax. So we usually have an EVAR to indicate which CTA a customer clicked on to get to your form, especially if it's an important KPI that you might have. You might want to understand where on your site is driving the most conversions from. And I would use an EVAR for that because it'll be sticky throughout the end of your form. It's not an EVAR, but we like to use different events for initiation and then submission of the form, so you can understand your form completion rate and build calculated metrics in Workspace. We also will use EVARs to capture anything a customer did, like while completing the form, that's not PII, but like, did they select a certain product? Did they check out with a certain type of status, like a gold member or a silver member? What type of lead are they submitting? Are they selecting a certain item from a dropdown, etc.? If there are multiple things like that that you want to capture upon submission of your form, I recommend capturing everything in one EVAR and then separating that out by pipes or colon or whatever. And then you can classify it on the back end. And that will just allow you to kind of use one checkout EVAR with whatever you're capturing on your form, but have it behave like separate EVARs in Workspace. I also recommend, like, if you have a spa type of page, using a custom prop to track different pages or steps in the flow, or unique events to do that. Again, especially if it's a spa page, because or like, an accordion drop down type thing to get to the next section, so you can still understand where customers are falling out. So those are some of my thoughts. I didn't have time when I wrote this to really tackle the previous page from a different subdomain part, but I'll think about that now while Jeff and Nick add some of their thoughts.
Something that actually I love it anytime we talk about forms, because not only do you want to manage these things, we always talk about form abandonment. And so something that you can also get into is using what we call a list var to capture form field abandonment. And that is very helpful when people leave your form. So because a list var, you can go ahead and capture multiple things when people leave the form before it's done. And so form field abandonment is a great way. The list var is a great way to capture those pieces. And the thing is how you capture those values in that list var. You want to determine what your delimiter is going to be. I'm huge about data standards. I will pound data standards. So you need to make sure that whatever it is that you're going to do for that list var, make sure that you are consistent every single time as to how you're going to capture them. Because when you later go to analyze them and output them, that's when the rubber's going to meet the road. Just like you do with products, campaign tracking, anything like that. Because if you mess it up later, you're going to be pulling your hair out trying to understand what it is that you're pulling into that field. So establish what you want to do. Is it going to be a couple of values? Is it going to be 3? Is it going to be 5? Whatever it's going to be, make sure you understand what it's going to be in that field. Because once you've done it, make sure you have it in place.
Yep.
And definitely get the ID or the name, because I've done that before where I've just tracked the form or tracked a form submit or something.
Yes.
And then like, oh man, which form was it? Was it the contact page form? Was it this one? I'm like, I don't know.
Yep.
I could tell you what page it was on, but if there's more than one on a page, then I got nothing. So, but yeah, my other bit was just going to be about form field abandonment, which Jeff pretty much covered. So
Yes, make sure that you know which form it's tied to.
Yep. Yep, that's a great tip. Yeah, so like, yeah, we have an EVAR that, like for us, we have a lot of different lead forms. So we have an EVAR that always indicates what lead form it is, for sure. Jeff or Nick, any thoughts on the previous page concept?
I don't
What
necessarily have
I
anything
I
on that
guess,
one.
you know, I'm not sure how your launch and property or report suites are set up, but hopefully those are in the same report suite. In which case, if they're in the same report suite, I think it should work. And if they're in the same Adobe launch property, not sure if they are or not, but I would recommend doing that. And then I believe previous page should work in theory. If you're using an EVAR and having it within the same launch property.
Hopefully so. Especially well, I mean, I like using props for that kind of stuff. But yes.
Yeah, we use a combination of both. Sometimes, right, because we do use props because it's like a traffic variable type of
Yes.
thing, and that works well with flow reports and pathing.
Exactly.
But every now and then we'll, use an EVAR as well in some of those circumstances so we can understand the subsequent.
Ever since they made that possible, ever since they made it possible to do that with EVARs, I guess I'm old school since
Yeah.
yeah, with that I always used props for that. But yes, I agree.
Cool.
I'm showing my age.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, talk about EVARs and props and getting back there. All right, let's see. Any other thoughts on this one?
No, forms are always interesting. I always find that it's because they're more complex typically.
Yep.
I even consider those sometimes the old if you remember the old funnel analysis they used to do in
Yeah.
analytics. I even consider those kind of a funnel of going through down through a completion of a page. That's kind of an interesting way to think of it.
Yep. Yeah, same. And then like one thing we've done interesting with forms is sometimes you'll have a form that loads as the page loads, right? It's just on the page. We still want to understand from a customer intent perspective when they're initiating that form so we can understand how many people start the form and then, like Jeff said, abandon, or looking at like my events for init and submit of that form.
Yes.
Right. But a customer's intent is not always to do the form if it's loading on the page, if there's a bunch of other stuff on the page. So we've done a thing where we fire that init event in that case, like on the first click into a typable form field. So that's something you could think about as well. If any of you have form fields that load on the page, but you still want to understand how many people start and finish or don't finish the completion of that form.
Yes, and you can also have, if you think about it, you can also have events that only fire once.
Mm-hmm.
So you could have both a cumulative amount that adds up by the end, but you do have the ability to make sure that they only fire like I think it's like once per. So
Yep.
Depending upon my memory here, but it's where they only fire once per visit.
Yep.
That way, you're not having you don't have multiple times that event is also firing. So that way you can control your that addition. So that way you can get a true idea of people that are actually so if you're looking at that conversion and adding up. So
yep,
if that helps as well, I kind of like that approach.
Me too. We do that at my company. We use the first event 1 through 500 events that always capture
Yep.
that whatever action, and then we use the subsequent or the same corresponding number 501 to 1,000 that only fire once per visit. So, for example, we have a total like any lead submission or any lead initiation, any lead submission. But sometimes like people do multiple forms in a visit, so we'll have like event 10 that'll fire anytime someone initiates a lead form, but event 510 only fires the very first time they do that. So then you can slice and dice. You can answer different questions like how many times did they initiate versus like did they at least do one lead initiation on their bit? Like what percent of my visits are at least starting one thing one time? We also we have multiple lead forms on our site. So we'll have that event 510 for any lead init, and then like 11-511 for any lead submit. But then we'll also have a unique event per lead type to really, because that's our main KPI. So we have quite a bit of mix and slice and dice data around that. So then we'll have a separate event, init, and submit for like a finance versus a transferring a car versus holding a car, stuff like that. So we've got a bit going on anytime someone starts or completes a form, but it's all used heavily at my company. So. Yeah. Okay. I'll just type up those.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Going down to the next question. Everyone's favorite topic, bots. It's been, seems like my world has been filled with this lately that I'm working on. But yeah, so someone says, recommended that the following approach be used to help eliminate bot traffic. I wanted to ask if this is valid. A visitor level segment where the following is excluded, page views are 1 and time spent is granular 0. And any recommendations for handling bot traffic. So I dropped a few in here last night. I mean, just some really easy, just do it, low-hanging fruit options to do. In the admin section in Adobe Analytics, you should definitely turn on the IAB bot filtering in the admin. That uses the international bot lists, like known bots, and filters that out of your traffic. It could be that you may want to have a report suite that does have them and a report suite that doesn't have them. We like to just keep ours out because they're not adding anything of value. Even the good bots that are hitting our site, we don't want to count that and mixed in with our customer traffic because they're never going to ultimately convert. So it just deflates our visit to, lead conversion rate. Another, Adobe provides some of these out of the box items like bot name, and then several metrics to go along with it, like bot occurrences, page views, and page ratio that you can use to see what, even if you have these on, like what other bots are maybe hitting your site. And sorry, I talked about the IAB bot filtering. Also in admin, you can exclude by individual IP or user agent, and you can upload a file of them if you have a big file of known bots. I think this segment could work. You could maybe apply that segment to this report and see what happens with it and without it, and see how many you might be catching. Another thing you could do depending on your site is page view is 1, but clicks is 0. We recently went through an exercise where a bot hit our site and we were able to identify through some similar logic a bunch of old, like really old mobile devices that we're now excluding. Those are some thoughts I have. Jeff or Nick?
There are a lot of different. I mean, where at Kroger where I worked, there was a whole list of um, of criteria we had in a segment. So we segmented
Mm-hmm.
out bots, and it was a huge, long, complicated list of different criteria. And I think some of these were used. Page view equals 1, clicks equals 0. Um, there's also like browser size will make a difference if it doesn't make any sense. You can kick those out. The uh, Let me see, the operating system and all that kind of stuff is usually Linux.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I'm not saying kick out everybody who's Linux,
Right.
but it's an identifier. So um, there generally a lot of people I know that's their setup. They have a segment that they put over top of everything, um, and they filter everything out based on that. So this is a completely valid way to do this. There's a million different ways to do
Yeah.
this. And as far as the question in chat, how do you identify the IP addresses? There's lists upon lists of them on the internet.
Mm-hmm.
You can find them. You just have to constantly find them because they're constantly being updated. Um, people make new bots all the time. One of my new coworkers was telling me about how he would make a bot occasionally to go do one thing or another, um, for himself, for his own purposes.
Yeah.
Um, which would be that much harder to identify. Um, but yeah, there's a million lists, a million examples of this on the internet to look at. But there's also there's also other options. There's third party options. If anybody went to Summit, I'm sure there was a handful of different bot companies out there that would help filter out your bots. Um, the irritating part about it for me is even with these filtering options that Adobe gives you, it still goes into your data set. Um, so you're still paying for the rows,
Right.
which is kind of no fun, but it is what it is. That's the benefit of filtering out before it gets to Adobe, and that's if you have a team that can do that, or if or that third party option where they go in and they filter it out before it hits your data set, so you don't have to pay for it there. But yeah, there's a lot of different options as far as bots are concerned.
Yeah. And there are, since this has been my world lately, um, there are several steps you can take in Adobe Launch as well to filter them out before they even, like Nick said, hit your site and count towards your server calls. Um, so that's something you could do, and that's in Adobe's knowledge base. If you search for um, bot, and I think it might be also on Experience League. If you search for like bots or bot filtering or whatever. So yeah, not count bots in. Um, and then this is not an Adobe solution, but we are pursuing kind of what we think. I don't know how to explain, but like a fake content type page where we're going to go in and try to identify it with like Akamai and stuff like that, like what we think is a bot versus not. If we think it's a bot, good or bad, send them to a replicated page on our site that's not in the carmax.com domain, but will fool the bot into thinking that it is our domain, and look and feel like our site, but not actually be our site. This is sorry, I am not a developer or anything, and we have not done this yet, so I don't know if it'll work, but we're thinking what we could do from there is either not tag it with Adobe, so we don't count those excuse me, as server calls at all, or tag it, and so we're still paying for it, but store it in a whole separate report suite so that we can at least analyze that data, see what's coming in, send that information, like those IPs, back to our InfoSec security team, and Akamai and block them up front. So then again, they're never hitting in the future. They don't ever get to hit our site again. So that's one kind of, I don't know, you could call it creative, you could call it hacky solution we're thinking about for how to just better control what hits our site. So, and what's counted in Adobe.
I'm actually going to bring up something that we ran into when I was at Kroger. Was when we had our configuration for customer journey analytics. And Nick is going to remember this because it was when we were actually validating our data for Blackhawk's implementation for our gift card site, because we were having issues with our when we were validating our revenue. And so we had bot filtering happening that they were doing for the regular implementation for our revenue for the Kroger side. But when we were looking at the revenue coming in for gift cards, the bot filtering was actually causing issues. And so we ended up having to not have bot filtering on the gift card site in order to be able to see the revenue properly through customer journey analytics. So we had two different data views. We had to have one that didn't have bot filtering for the gift card site, and then so it was quite interesting the way that we had to manage the data views between two different. We had to look at it two different ways in order to be able to properly have data come into our data view for customer journey analytics. And I don't even understand all of the nuances as to the whys, but evidently it had to do with how with the mechanics of how Blackhawk managed their site, because we needed to evidently have that view, and they'd probably have to explain it to us as to why we had to do it that way. But yeah, by having the bot filtering on their site, it made it so that it altered the numbers to where it actually brought down the amount of revenue. And I don't know if Nick have the ability to explain that any better than I can. No, see, he's shaking his head. We don't know exactly why. We just knew that we had to remove the bot filtering in order to make it work. So yeah, that was an odd one for us when we were trying to figure all that out and we were doing all of the validation. That's the fun thing. I'll tell people right now is when you're having to do the migration from Adobe Analytics over to CJA, you're going to go through all these fun things. But that's one of them that we ran into was trying to decide, it's like, do we do bot filtering? Do you not do bot filtering? From one thing to the next. So yeah.
Yep. Tiffany, I see your question about how do you identify the bot IP address? Unfortunately, one thing you can't do, which I've submitted as a product feature request to Adobe, is pull IP under here. That would be very convenient, but that doesn't exist yet. Nor can you pull these items in Data Warehouse under IP, because IP doesn't live in Workspace and bot dimension and metrics don't live in Data Warehouse. So hopefully that will come someday. But how we identify bots, one thing we've used is Google does have a list of known IPs. So, I mean, that's good bot. You might want them hitting your site, but still may not want to count that traffic. So you can go generate that. Bing probably has the same. There could also be, like Nick was talking about, other public lists of known bot IPs. The main way we get them, though, is through more of an upper funnel tool like Akamai with our information security team. If they see what looks like bot traffic, sketchy looking traffic, they'll send us those IPs. And we might run a report in Workspace to kind of see, like, okay, are they real bots, or are they generating any leads or any clicks or anything like that? If not, then we'll go ahead and block them in admin. See if there's any other questions.
There's another question about grouping automated ad validation system traffic. And I mean, that's again up to you. There's a lot of people that will end up doing that if it's not a person. They group stuff together and kick it out of reporting just because, as Megan said before, they're not going to convert. But there's a lot of things that people will group into there. Like I said, if it's not a person, a new one would be AI traffic. So anything from like Gemini um, or ChatGPT or anything like that, people will start grouping that together and putting it in with bot traffic and getting rid of it as well too. Um, I think it's kind of yet to be seen what all come from that, but uh, who knows? Maybe they will make purchases and convert. I'm not really sure how that's going to work, but um, but yeah, there's a lot of things that are grouped together and then excluded. It just depends on how you want to see your data.
Did we get all the? I think we had caught up in the chat. So okay, all right. So back to the workspace here. I think we just have one more pre-submitted question, but again, if anyone excuse me, has questions in the chat, feel free to drop them in here. This one I haven't been able to try out because it's about Report Builder. I saw this on Experience League because my IT has blocked me from downloading it, so I'm in the process of trying to get access to it. But yeah, not sure if anyone else has had experience using new Report Builder. Looking for the subtotal option.
I haven't actually used the new one yet. I have, I only used the older one at Kroger when I worked there because I had the same issue where I couldn't download it and install it. And I'm not in a position now where I haven't had the necessity to download it at my new position yet and use it. So I unfortunately do not have an answer for this one.
Okay. And this could have been answered in Experience League already as well. I probably pulled it a week or so ago, so it may very well have been. But I just was looking for unanswered questions and pulled this one in. So.
I was going to say, since you're pulling it into Report Builder, that's Excel. Can't you? Can you not use the subtotal function within Excel itself? Dumb question, but
No, I mean that might be a good workaround. In the meantime, let's see.
Sorry, I'm just thinking out of the box.
Yeah.
I mean that's correct. You just can't have it in the data box where things get populated.
I guess. I mean, I'm just thinking export the data and then do your manipulations once it's in Excel.
Well, this one, it looks like it's been running for 5 years, so there's going to be a new row like every week. So you just have to sum a total column and then have it off to the side somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, I'm one of those types of people that if I'm going to pull something into Excel, the whole reason for putting it into Excel is export the data and then do whatever you want to do once it's in Excel. But that's just me.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Yes, it sounds like it's not a ton of us have used the new one yet. It's fine. I'll go check this out on Experience League, see if it's been answered. One tip, if anyone has not heard of Report Builder, it's a really kind of not very talked about, but really handy dandy tool that I use a lot to basically do Adobe Analytics within Excel, like right there. You can download, if your company lets you, an add-in, a plugin to Excel, where you can then go create queries right there in Excel and pull in EVARs, props, events, page data, stuff like that right there in Excel. And then just do your calculations right there. It's very handy. It's very easy. You can then, like I've turned that into then, and you can automate it. You can schedule it. So I've used that to then automate Tableau reports that are based off that Excel file, and I don't really have to update it. It's just on a schedule. It updates on its own, and then Tableau picks up the latest version that gets put in a folder. So it can be a great way to do ad hoc analysis right there in Excel. It can be a great way to export it to then put elsewhere, like Tableau. It can be. It's just a helpful tool. One minor picky best practice I always did was any calculations I did versus what was pulled from Adobe, I just did in a different color. I know that sounds silly, but that helped me visually keep, because you have to keep those columns free in Excel for the report to run. So that just always helped me know, like, okay, this is something I can go edit my calculation versus what's running with the report builder. So anyway, little shout out to Report Builder because it didn't get much love, but it has been very helpful to me in the past. So.
Yeah, they said we could probably do a whole like tips and tricks just off of Report Builder.
Report Builder. Let's get access to it and then play with it and then do that.
There you go.
Because there's a lot of handy things I've seen people do with it.
Oh yeah, like you could. I've a little selfish plug to a previous webinar and blog post I've written about how you can create your own click heat map, or conversion heat map. It's automated and still like colored and stuff like that using Report Builder from a couple years ago. So yeah, so you can do some pretty cool out of the box type things with it.
Yeah, that's where the fun stuff with, like I said, being a macro, VBA geek, doing that kind of stuff with Excel. That's where the fun stuff can begin with using Report Builder. So yeah.
Yeah.
New question.
Yeah, and Melissa, I see your question. You can find that if you go to Adobe, and then I think it's Tools, and Report Builder. And there's an option to download it there, and you'll just need to pick whether you have, I think, 32 or 64-bit version.
I think the new version just takes you directly to the
okay.
Microsoft Store, and you download it from there.
Okay. Good. Let's see. Question from Tiffany came into the chat. Why does the out-of-the-box tracking for cities show random cities in other states? Let's see. Random cities in other states.
Meaning if you're looking at only one state, I'm guessing. If you only want to see what's happening in Texas.
So, you mean, so like if you have a certain state selected, let's see, like so. Tiffany, feel free to expand on your.
Yeah, clarification there.
Just an idea, because she's saying most websites are state specific. So theoretically, why would there be traffic coming in from other states? One thing, Ashburn is one that'll show up all over the place. Was that Virginia or whatever? That's a bot hub. There's everything. If it's coming from Ashburn, 9 times out of 10,
Mm-hmm.
99 times out of 100, it's a bot, not a person. There are
Also,
a couple other big places like that.
VPNs. So a lot of people
Yeah,
have
VPNs, big
VPNs
servers for companies. Yeah.
stuff. Yeah, so VPNs will definitely drive that. For
Yep.
instance, I believe uh, when we were, I think, I think a lot of them came out of Chicago. I'm trying to think. I know anytime I was connected to my VPN, it would show me out of Chicago. Um,
Yep. Yeah. So that could be one reason.
mhm.
Um, yeah. Why you're getting other stuff. I mean, I don't know the nature of your company or your site, but you know, you even like CarMax, selling used cars is a very kind of state by state thing, and there's a lot of different laws and regulations. But we have
Yep.
people all the time who are shopping in other states because it's a very unique car, um, VIN, or they are on vacation and not in their normal home state, or like visiting family, or they're shopping um, for a purchase back home, where they're not, or they're in the military and they're stationed somewhere else at the moment. So um, obviously, you know your site better than I do, and whether those would be legitimate reasons or not. But uh, even our business, which is fairly state specific,
Also, more and
there
more
are reasons.
companies. I will tell you, more and more companies are being. It depends on their cookie policies and and each individual person's choice as to how much data they are willing to share. So you know how everyone when a particular person goes to a site and it brings up that cookie policy and they say don't, if they reject or anything else. So it really is up to the individual person as to how much they will allow a site to collect, and they have to allow. I think it's it'll show either functional, or there's another choice that also allows analytics to be collected on a person. Just about any site now these days, people have to select or allow cookies. So if they don't allow cookies to be yeah, performance. There you go. Performance is the other one. Thank you. My brain does not always like to help me. So yeah, the strictly necessary will not always allow analytics. So yeah, strictly necessary will not always allow analytics. So that's the thing. It depends on the site. But that's the thing now with privacy. Um, privacy a lot of times will not even allow analytics to be pulled. So that's and so that was a problem that we dealt with, at least on the Kroger personal finance side, quite a lot. Kroger wasn't as I didn't have as much of an issue on it, but I will tell you, we had a lot of issues with looking at state type stuff, if you wanted to look at any kind of demographic. So yeah, all of those things will affect what you see if you start trying to pull this kind of data.
Yeah.
And your earlier, will mobile devices make an impact as well? Yes, they will. For example, I live in Kentucky. The internet thinks I'm in Ohio all the time, because I'm very close to the border. The
Hmm.
state border lines are fuzzy on the internet.
Yep.
So it's, where's the closest cell tower? Where's this,
Yep.
signal getting pinged off of or whatever. So mobile has a lot. Yeah, you'll see a lot of that in mobile as well. And if you were to track down where the cities are, um, some of them on mobile, they might be border cities close to where you're looking for. Um, I would expect to see a lot of that.
Yeah. Like, sometimes our nearest store to someone is actually in a different state, right? So if there's no CarMax store near them, in their state, but there could be one just over the border in the other state. So I think there's lots of technical reasons that could happen, as well as very legitimate, like customer shopping reasons, or just if your sites are searchable on the internet, like who knows what people are looking for, that could drive, like when I'm planning for vacations, I'm in Virginia, but I'm looking for like, give me the best whatever thing in that state or things to do in that state. And then I'm going to like some state specific pages, but again, so yeah. Okay. Several states away. Yeah. I mean, yeah, again, I think, yeah, I don't know what the nature of your business or site is, but I think some people just, yeah, sometimes have legitimate reasons to be looking several states away for things like, even a car business. Like I'm in Virginia, but like my friend bought a really unique car from one of our stores in California last year. So he was on like California taxes and fees, like government websites, looking at things like that to try to see how he could ship it. So even like a California government type site that you would think mostly just residents would use, my friend used. So there's probably always legit reasons, as well as the just servers and link farms and VPNs, and people's companies headquarters sometimes can do that. So anyway,
Yeah, if they're government-based sites, I'm on different states' government sites all the time because I'll have a crazy idea. Like I want to do something and I want to see if it's legal or not. So I'll go check it out. And then, of course, I don't ever do any of it, but I'll follow up and look into it. So
nice. Cool. Awesome. Let's see. Any other questions from anyone attending? Please drop them in. Will there be champions groups for CJA users? As in, well, so these office hours, if you're talking about office hours, are open to Adobe Analytics or CJA questions. There aren't specific Adobe champion groups that are just one or the other. We're all a big happy mix, and some of us use CJA and some of us don't. Some of us wish we could use it. But in addition to these office hours, which are available for any types of Adobe Analytics questions, whether it's regular or CJA, there are user groups that the champions work on, as well as others who produce a lot of different content. Some content will be relevant to both. Some content will say, like I just saw one from a user group coming up that's like CJA Q&A or something like that. So sometimes there'll be CJA specific webinar or user group topics or content that are put out there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, as far as this type of thing with office hours, there's still a lot more AA users than there are CJA users. So the focus tends to skew toward AA. But any CJA questions that come up, I think we'll do our best to handle.
Melissa, good question. That's probably something we should have talked about proactively. Yeah, Adobe Summit. Adobe Summit was great. It's great whether you were there in person or can watch some of the stuff later virtually. I was there in person, and I've still, for the past couple of weeks, just been going through my long list of backlog stuff that I didn't get to see live, that I'm like, just this morning I listened to the keynote from Shantanu. But yes, a couple of the ones we can recommend are the Adobe Analytics Rockstars. That's a really great one. Lots of really practical tips you can try out right now in both regular Adobe Analytics and or CJA. So that's a really great session hosted. Several Adobe champions were part of that one. Our friends, Jeff was part of it, and Mandy and Jen.
Yes.
And
Yep.
You and Crystal did one too, didn't you?
and myself
You
and
Crystal. Yep.
Crystal did one. We did one of the skills exchanges. That's really geared. It was geared toward any user, but especially Adobe admins. If you're going to go check that out, but Crystal gave several great tips, and then my tips were around the best way to develop and write, build and maintain requirements for tagging. A very exotic topic. And then Isha did one as well. She's also an Adobe champion. She did a skills exchange on marketing channels. But you could look for that one. It was on Thursday morning. Those 3 sessions that I mentioned were all Thursday. If you want to search for those. And yeah, one was Isha Gupta, one was Christelle and mine, and then another one was Rock Stars. Those were all great. I did a hands-on target lab that I thought was really cool. I don't think the labs are available afterward, but what were some other ones, Jeff and Nick, that you particularly enjoyed?
Oh, the one that Russ and the 8-bit session that they did, that was fantastic.
Oh yeah, that was CJA, right?
Yeah, that was CJA.
Okay. Yep.
That was amazing.
Yeah, I didn't get to go.
So look up. I think if you look up 8-bit, that'll come up, and that was on Tuesday.
I believe that was on Tuesday.
Tuesday, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
What other Adobe Analytics stuff? The help shape the future of the product. That's about stuff that will or may be built. So I always find those very interesting. But that was a good session. And then there's the one on the it's like the playoff tips and tricks.
Yes,
like
with Travis Sabin. Yes.
Yes, with Travis Sabin. That was a really good. That's always a really good one as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So hopefully that gives you some good recommendations. If anyone wants to go check any of these out, you can go to the Adobe Summit website and look up sessions. You can filter by product. So if you click on Adobe Analytics, that's going to give you any of the analytics sessions. But yeah, those are all good ones.
Sneaks is always fun too. It's not specific.
Sneaks is always amazing. It's probably the best sneaks they've done in a long time.
I agree. If you want just some laughs, there wasn't. It obviously isn't as specific to Adobe Analytics. There's a whole bunch of stuff in there, but Ken Junk, he's great. So that was highly entertaining. Okay, good. I'm glad you got to see Sneaks. Yeah, that was very entertaining this year. So, good. Yeah, good question, Melissa. Thank you. All right. Any other questions from folks?
Yeah, the best part about Sneaks is that they didn't censor it. That's what I was.
Yes.
Most.
Hopefully they didn't online either.
No, I checked.
Okay.
I was so glad they didn't.
Yeah, there were quite a few bombs dropped.
A few F-bombs, yes, just a few.
in that one. So yeah. That was good. All righty. Well, I'll hang on for a minute to see if there's any other questions. But thank you all for joining so much. We really appreciate everyone joining and participating, and for all your great questions. Please feel free to reach out to any of us anytime with questions, or drop them in Experience League. A whole bunch of us are on there, as well as many of our champions and non-champions who are all really smart and know good stuff. if you're interested, we do these every month. Please feel free to fill out the form with pre-submitted questions. Again, we'll try to go in and add some notes ahead of time. And yeah, I hope everyone had fun. Thanks for joining. Hope you have a great rest of your day.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye.